Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler was one of those leading the calls to terminate Penn's president. He joins us now. Congressman, the House is in recess right now, but we have also seen a lot of people outspoken about what's happening at Harvard right now. The president there able to keep her job and getting some support. What do you make of that? And also, do you think that these calls for a resignation are going to persist into the new year?
I hope these calls for resignations persist in the new year, of course. But what's happening is you're seeing that our college education system, especially our Ivy League colleges, they're broken institutions. They've completely abandoned the values of Western civilization. And you see it play out when it comes to the war in Gaza. It's okay for people, or it's not okay for people to use improper pronouns on these college campuses. You can't espouse conservative viewpoints, for example. But it's okay to call for the genocide of the Jewish race or the extermination of the state of Israel. It shows you how far left and how radical these institutions have become. Now, when it comes to McGill, I was very proud that I led that letter to call for her resignation, and she should have been forced to resign. But when it comes to MIT and Harvard, it shows you just how far left these institutions are. And what it's going to come down to is it's going to come down to donors refusing to donate to those institutions until they change their positions on the Israeli war and drop the anti-Semitism for starters, but also embrace freedom of speech. And if I could just say this, if you look at UPenn and Harvard, UPenn is second to the last when ranked by FIRE, which is an institute that ranks colleges and universities based on free speech. They're second to the last on that list. Harvard is the worst. So it's quite astounding that in these institutions that have horrible records on freedom of speech, you can get in trouble for saying anything. But if you call for the genocide of the Jewish race and the destruction of the state of Israel, then all of a sudden now they've discovered free speech, and that double standard, that hypocrisy, is really what's really causing this divide.
You know, that hearing, that testimony was so eye-opening to maybe prospective students or students on campus who've seen it firsthand, but really the donors who maybe graduated years ago, didn't realize this was happening on college campus. And they said, wait a second, you're allowing what to take place on campus? Do you think it was the financials that really played a role in her movement, McGill's movement here, and the backlash that some of these elite universities are now finally facing?
I really do. It was the donors that were pulling their donations. UPenn, for example, lost a $100 million donation that an alum was going to give and said, because your institution is so anti-Semitic, I'm not going to give you that $100 million endowment. So, of course, that called for it. But I want to be clear about something. With McGill gone, this does not solve any issues. I'm glad she's gone because it's the right finally engaging in cancel culture, tit for tat against the left. So that's a good thing. But the institution itself has not changed. I'm convinced that you're still going to see anti-Semitism. You're still going to have Jewish students feeling unsafe, for example, on these college campuses. And all the speech regarding what the left perceives as dangerous, that will be suppressed. And there'll still be calls for supporting Hamas, for example, and again, saying that Israel should, or from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, which is in reference to a genocidal call to arms. But you're still going to see that. But at the end of the day, these institutions are far too left. They're far too woke. They're antithetical to Western civilization and Western values. That's the real problem with this. How you address that's going to be a long-term solution. It's got to be a societal approach, just not focusing on removing these woke liberal professors and presidents of universities.
And Harvard protecting their president who's been caught plagiarizing some of her papers. Let's move on to this, though. The Senate is working on a Ukraine-Israel aid package with border improvements. We're not going to go there, though. I want to ask you about this. Maryland Democratic Senator Ben Cardin having to deal with this. A staffer, since fired, was caught filming a sex tape in the historic Senate hearing room. Capitol Hill police confirming to Newsmax that they're still looking into this. Congressman, what did you make when you heard the news that this happened?
Well, I was absolutely disgusted by that, but it shows you that the left holds our institutions in complete disdain and disregard. There's no respect from the left of the institutions that have been standing. So this disrespect is not surprising to me. And let's not forget, this same staffer is the one that told Max Miller, my good friend, fellow congressman he's from Ohio, He walked up to him on the in the halls and said, "Free Palestine," knowing that Max Miller was a Jewish member of
Congressman,
Congress. So,
and I want to
his
ask you,
staffers had problems.
can I follow up with just a question? Because he's disputing that happened. This aide is denying that happened. Can you confirm that actually did happen? You saw it.
Yeah, so I did not see that it happened, but Max Miller told me that it happened. I have to agree. I have to believe that it did happen, and it's interesting because Capitol Police have cameras everywhere in the halls. They could easily focus in and figure out if that was a staffer that had a confrontation with Max Miller. They could know in about 5 minutes if they pulled the right footage. But again, the staffer's already gone. No longer working here. But again, the disdain and the animosity for the institutions does not surprise me. This staffer just got caught in an act of disrespect.
You know, Congressman, you mentioned the security cameras. I almost hate to ask this next question. Were there security cameras in this hearing room? Is Capitol Police forced to go through that right now?
There's security cameras everywhere. To my knowledge, everywhere except the bathrooms. I mean, especially after the 6th. There's cameras everywhere. And it's just not in the Capitol building. D.C. is one of the most surveyed, or one of the biggest surveillance cities in the world. It's amazing where the cameras are. When you walk around, you'll see lampposts that you think are lampposts. They're not. They're actually cameras. They're just very well disguised.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll be criminal charges? That's the big discussion right now. Should this aide be charged?
Well, no, unfortunately, I don't think there will be criminal charges. There should be. Had that been a Republican staffer doing that, there would be criminal charges. But this goes back to that double standard of justice we have in the United States, especially here in D.C. Remember that Representative Bowman pulled a fire alarm. That's a felony offense. He also pulled a fire alarm to delay votes. He was obstructing the business of Congress. That's a felony offense. But the DA here in Washington, D.C. gave him a sweetheart deal and let him plead guilty to a misdemeanor, and he got some community service, for example. So if you're a supporter of the ruling regime, there's a completely different set of criminal justice standards and criminal justice for you. If you're a member of the general public, there's a different standard. If you're a conservative, there's an even worse standard for you. So we actually have a 3-tier criminal justice system. This guy just happens to fall in the one that's favored by the establishment. So I'd be shocked to see if there's any charges. And if there are, it'll be weak and watered down.
Yeah, it also depends, of course, what media outlet you get your news from. You might not have even heard of this story, right, because it's just not getting a lot of coverage on the left. Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler joining us this morning. Thanks so much, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on. Merry Christmas.
You got it. Hey, you too. Merry Christmas.